Well, I want to start by asking you about Billy's Place, which opening night was May 9th, 2020. Um, when you,
May 7th, actually, but I'm just being a stickler. So,
well, I guess that was the day it ended up posted to YouTube. So,
right. There you go.
when you started those shows, did you have any sense of how successful they would be, or how many you would end up doing, or that you would still be doing them?
No idea. I mean, at that point, I guess we were about 6 weeks or 7 weeks into the pandemic. So it felt like it was going to go on a little while. I mean, I actually, before I did my own shows, I did a series of Wednesday shows with Linda Lavin. And we started those like 4 days after the shutdown, like I think March 18th. And we thought, oh, we'll do this like a couple of weeks and then everything will be fine, And I think that's what we all sort of thought during the first few weeks. And finally it got to May and I thought, well, I should grab my own spot and do my own show. But I had no idea it was going to go on that long. I don't think anyone could have predicted that. I thought, it'll go a few months until this whole thing is over. And naive, you look back at that and you think, well, what were we thinking? But but there was no precedent for it. So it was quite a surprise to keep going with it. And then it became a challenge to keep doing new shows, new content every week, and keep the audience engaged and grab new listeners and watchers. So that became like my main goal at that point. So because there wasn't any outside work, that's for sure.
Right, but the great thing is there are so many thousands of songs that at least it's not like you had to go back and repeat the same song 15 times.
No, exactly. I mean, I really made it my goal to do a totally different hour every week. And so, there's so much great music. There's Gershwin, there's Porter, there's Birdland. I mean, I don't have to tell you. I did a show summer of 2020, the first summer, that was a Barry Manilow birthday show. And because he's a friend of mine, I had him call in. So that was kind of fun. On some shows, I would have guests call in. And it was so low budget because it was just audio. I was just holding up my phone on speaker to the microphone. It was just about as low rent as you can get, but it kind of enhanced it. It made it fun to have people call in, and it was just thrilling for me to be able to get Melissa Manchester and Lucy Arnaz and all sorts of different people who joined me, here and there. So.
Well, it was also great because you and Julie Halston gave us reasons to have drinks in the afternoon, at least those of us on the West Coast.
That's correct. Yes, absolutely. Any excuse to drink at 5 o'clock. I mean, it was so funny. I always say I got to, how American Express will give you like a full rundown of your end of year credits and everything. And I was flipping the pages at the beginning of last year, going through my 2020, and like there was a whole page for Central Park Liquors. And I'm like, oh, wow, this is getting a little out of control. But what else was there to do? I mean, we're enjoying new cocktails. And of course, I featured a new cocktail every week on the show too. So that kind of made it fun too. So any excuse to kick back, relax, have a drink, and enjoy music. That's my goal.
Right. Well, after you introduced Billy's Place at the start of the first episode, the next song you sang was Teach Me Tonight. Right. And I'm wondering what those 64 and counting episodes taught you.
Oh, well, what I didn't really realize when we started was that I was going to grab this huge audience all over the place. I was just doing it for myself, and I was just thinking about how I can keep busy, maybe generate a little income, but more than that, just keep my creative thing going. And then it became pretty clear within a few weeks that I was getting friends in London that were watching, certainly lots of friends on the West Coast, friends in South America, people that didn't know me before. So that was a fantastic bonus, and certainly a tribute to the power of the internet. I mean, I would never have had cause to explore that before the pandemic. So that was really a nice surprise, and there's no turning back now. I'm really enjoying. I've made so many friends all over the world through this experience.
It's interesting because we live in an era where beats are more important than lyrics and music. Or certainly music. I think the lyrics, you can argue, are maybe not the same as something that Sondheim or Cole Porter might have written, but lyrics have their place right now. But melody seems to take a backseat to beats.
Yeah.
Why do you think the songs that you celebrate, that you love, that I love, are still cutting through, are still having a lasting impact, even in a world where if you look at the pop charts, or the Billboard charts in general, you're not going to find this music.
No, I mean, I always feel, I mean, that's a really good question. And I don't have a definitive answer, but I think there is definitely a hunger and a passion and a longing for people to hear good music and to respond to music, good, tuneful, harmonic music. And, nothing can really replace a finely crafted lyric that goes with an equally finely crafted piece of music. I mean, it's such a rare thing. So much of it does come out of, certainly in the golden age, came out of Broadway, character driven songs. And, the 70s was a great time for pop music too. We have moved away from that a little bit, just with the nature of the technology and, like you said, beats and rhythms and so much synthetic music. That's not where I come from. That was never anything that I was interested in. And thankfully, I have found that there always are people who really do want to hear this music of all ages. And that's what's surprising. Although, when I was in my teens and 20s, I was seeking this music out too. So there's always, thankfully, a group of, a segment of people of all ages who really do respond to really good music. Thankfully, thank goodness.
Right. I would hazard a guess, though, that you were probably a bit of an anomaly in Sugarland, Texas.
A bit, yeah, I was. I mean, uh, I mean, everybody was listening to pop music or country music. I just sought this music out from a really young age. I mean, honestly, one of the first places that I heard probably Gershwin music or any music from that era was by watching TV variety shows, mainly the Carol Burnett show, because there would always be this music featured on her show. She would have musical guests, and she had great arrangers. Peter Matz and Ken and Mitzi Welch would create these 10 or 15-minute musical sequences, and I just loved that. When I was 9, 10, 11 years old, I would grab my little cassette tape, portable tape player, and I would set it next to the TV speaker, and I would record these things, and then I would go into the living room where we had an upright piano, and I would just play it back and listen. So from the time I was 9 or 10, I was starting to learn these things by ear. And so I was a bit of an anomaly, but also, it made me kind of really popular in junior high and certainly in high school, because by that point I could play almost anything for anybody. I was playing Billy Joel stuff and Elton John stuff. And so songs, music that wasn't just, old people's music. So, it was a way for me to kind of get attention and shine. I wasn't an athlete. I wasn't like the smartest person in any class, but I was the star of the talent show and the band. And so it was great. I got a lot of encouragement from a pretty young age.
I think any of us who grew up playing the piano, found that that was an asset that we had growing up in school.
Did you play the piano as well?
Oh, absolutely. I actually started playing the organ, of all things.
Oh, okay, sure. Yeah.
Which I guess is something you did in the 60s.
Well, I did play. I played in church. We didn't have a pipe organ. We had like a Hammond organ with the big Leslie speaker. But I learned how to play the foot pedals and do all that stuff. So I'm not totally unfamiliar with that music. But that's a hard instrument. I mean,
It is. I'm much happier with a piano, to be honest with you. There are really only 2 pedals I have to worry about.
That's correct. Exactly. Much easier. Yeah.
Right. Now, with the pandemic, you've, more than at any other time in your career, I think, you've become front and center as opposed to being the music director. And,
Yeah.
And I'm wondering what comes with that attention that you like, and what comes with that attention that surprised you or that you're maybe not as comfortable with?
Well, being a solo performer was something I started doing out of necessity. When I was 29, I guess, I spent my whole 20s with a vocal group called Montgomery, Plant, and Stritch. And so the 3 of us, it was me and 2 girls, and we were very unique, and we did a lot of comedy, but tight group harmony. We did really well. We worked a lot in New York at the Algonquin Hotel when the Oak Room was there. We would do 6-week, 8-week runs for years, for quite a few years. We worked Carnegie Hall. We opened for Mel Torme. We played jazz festivals all over. Well, when that broke up, I made a permanent move to New York. Prior to that, I was living in Texas, but I made the permanent move to New York because I'd made so many connections and sort of struck out on my own. And it's a lot of work, obviously. I mean, I'm not so much into the self-promotion side. I just like to perform, But I realized earlier, if you're going to do a show 8 o'clock on Thursday at the Duplex or someplace, you really had to like get the flyers and get the word out, and that was a part I never really loved. So luckily for me, another thing that I really loved doing was accompanying. And it wasn't very long that I started my association with Liza Minnelli. So that kind of took me in a whole different direction. And I'd also played, by that point, I had played for Marilyn May off and on for a few years. We're coming up on 42 years that we've worked together. So I always loved accompanying. It was a great way for me to work and be creative and have a collaboration with someone. And yet the whole weight of selling the show wasn't on my shoulder. I mean, that's totally honest. I was able to, going with Christine Ebersole or Marilyn, or even the year, certainly Tony Bennett. I mean, that's a real extreme, certainly. But, I always loved the collaboration too. Well, so when the pandemic happened and I started doing these live stream shows, obviously it was just me alone in my apartment with a ring light, kind of like I am now. I started, getting more recognition again all these years later as a solo performer, which was kind of something I never, like I said, I never shied away from it, but it was just a lot of work. But, at this point in my life, I'm kind of thrilled about it because, I do know a ton of material. I'm much more polished as a performer. I'm much more comfortable in front of an audience, speaking to an audience, being spontaneous in front of an audience. I'm not nervous like I was when I first started out. So it feels really right at this moment in time. And so I'm seeking out a lot more solo work to kind of go hand in hand with the accompanying work that I love doing, that I never want to stop doing, because I love sharing the stage. I love supporting great singers. So it's been good. It's actually been good. I've enjoyed kind of coming back as a soloist a little bit.
Is there anything you've found disconcerting or uncomfortable about being front and center?
No, I wouldn't say so. It's just when I was doing the live streams every week, it was just after, when we got about a year into it, it was the pressure of learning a new show every week. That was not, totally comfortable. But it's still, I never shied away from that challenge. No, nothing. Like I said, at this point in my life, I'm very comfortable in front of an audience by myself. I have a lot of experience working with sidemen now, so it's very easy for me. There's nothing that really throws me off my game at this point.
Well, one thing you did say that throws you off your game is when you start thinking too much when you're doing it, because when you start thinking, you get in your head, and that's when you're likely to make a mistake.
Oh, for sure.
And I'm wondering how complicated that equation becomes when you're also the vocalist in addition to the musician.
Yeah. Well, it is two separate things, but for me, once I started working on my own for a few years, I got pretty adept at playing here, singing here, the audience is here. And it's almost like it just happens naturally. I mean, it's kind of hard to explain, but you touched on it. I mean, it's like it just flows out of me. If I'm in the middle of a song and I start to think about what I'm doing, then sure enough, I'm going to hit a wrong note or hit a wrong chord. I mean, it's just like, I just kind of have to be open, stay connected with the audience, and stay connected really with the lyric, and not think too much about what I'm playing. I mean, I practice a lot, I rehearse it a lot. So by the time I put it out there on a stage, it's, I know what I'm doing. But it is, it's a funny place to be in. You have to keep yourself totally open and channel it through. Once you start to think about it in the moment, is when you start to once you start to think about anything could fly. What you did that morning, who said something that kind of rubbed you the wrong way right before the show, whatever. You've got to let all that go. You can't let that in.
Right. I'm thinking in particular about Sondheim's music, because Sondheim's music, I know a lot, there's used to be a gay piano bar here in Los Angeles called The Other Side. And most of the musicians who played there, not all, but most of them played by ear.
Right.
Or they could read charts, just chord charts. And the thing with Sondheim, it isn't that you go from G, to D minor. That's sort of a radical change, but it's not like you go from there. It's how you get from there.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, that's a very good point. I mean, with his music, there's so much in the accompaniment, and so much that is like when you get the sheet music that you can get, or the Sondheim books. One of the things I do is a good thing going, and there's so much tension and little rubs in the harmony that kind of have to be there. You can't oversimplify Sondheim. I mean, it's totally different than playing a Gershwin song, where you can, not that I oversimplify anything, but there's room for chord substitutions and different turnarounds, and, much more interpretation of making an arrangement different in a different style. Sondheim, not so much, as you pointed out. I mean, you really want to stick to the page as much as possible, because there's so much delicious stuff in the piano accompaniment that's usually taken from the orchestration of the show. And that's kind of what makes Sondheim so touching on some level, is the way, the way it's orchestrated, and the way the harmonics, he worked really hard on that, so yeah, you have to give him his due, for sure.
Well, and if you don't have that tension in a song like Good Thing Going, the payoff isn't going to be there when you say going gone.
You just can't say going, gone. Yeah. You gotta have those flatted fifths and those little things that go against the majors against the minors, that create the little tear, or the little uncertainty, or the little ill at ease kind of thing, because that's what the lyrics, I mean, he was a genius. Duh. I mean, he really, I don't think he really separated the two. I think, he knew how to, if the word or the phrase was going to be something that had a secondary meaning, or some sort of regret, or some sort of, he knew how to do that in the accompanying chord and music, and genius.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now, for somebody who's been so much a part of celebrating the work of, Marilyn May, or Linda Lavin, or Christine Ebersole, or Liza, or Tony Bennett, this weekend you're front and center. We're celebrating, a rather big birthday.
I'm old. Yeah.
Now you're old, but you're just getting older. You're not old. Old is much further down the line.
I think, yeah, the definition of old has certainly changed. I'm going to be 60 this weekend. And of course, 60 looks a lot different than it looked when I was a kid. My old aunts and uncles, when they were 60, they were old. They were all old looking. We're not that old looking at 60. And so, I mean, I don't feel that at all. It's just so funny. I mean, the only way that I know that I'm 60 is now with so much on, Instagram and Facebook, so many old memories pop up. There's a few pages or Instagram accounts that are devoted to Liza, or devoted to different things. And all of a sudden I'll see a picture of me and her from like 1991, and it's like, holy crap, yeah, that was me. That was 30 years ago. I normally don't go around thinking that was 30 years ago, but I'm reminded of it quite often. And then I'll have people who have found me, or see me at different places. I've had so many times some young singer has come to me and said, oh my God, I'm such a fan. The first time I heard you was when my parents took me to see Liza. I guess I was 7. I'm like, you were 7? Yeah, okay, sure, of course you were 7. You're only 27 now. So that makes me feel old, but that's just the passage of time doing its thing. But yeah, so 60, I thought it was a good reason to celebrate. I thought it was a good reason to bring a newish show to my New York performing home, which is Birdland. And they have two performance spaces, the Birdland, which has been there for a long time, and then a newer theater downstairs. It's only been open about 3 years, 3.5 years. And so I'm doing 5 shows this weekend, Thursday, 1 show, and then 2 on Friday and Saturday to celebrate my rather big birthday.
So you get to celebrate being 65 times.
I do.
Now,
that's 300.
yeah, it is. It is. So I hope that you're going to be doing 300 different songs over the course of these 5 shows.
I'm not.
But what do you want most? How do you want to celebrate it? I mean, you get to sort of chart the way your birthday's celebrated this year. What's most important to you about the way this birthday gets celebrated?
Just anytime. I always heard and believed, and actually Liza used to tell me, anytime that you can work and perform on your birthday, it's kind of the best thing to do, because it is a birthday wish come true. The fact that it's still going on, I'm able to work. I have friends and family and fans that come and see me. It's very affirming to me. There's nothing material that I need. Really, I have all the comforts that I would love to have a bigger apartment, but we all would. But so there's nothing particular I need. What's going to be fun is that I know a lot of friends are coming, and I've actually invited some of my favorite friends that I've collaborated with to join me. So I have a different singer in each show that are going to join me, which is going to be great. I mean, that's kind of like a fun way to make it a little more about variety, and a little more, again, a little bit more about collaboration. At some point in each show, I'm going to bring on a friend, and we'll have a good time together, and that's fun. I love to have fun and be loose on stage, and that's going to allow me to do that. I've got Max von Essen is coming to sing with me on Thursday. Fantastic Broadway singer who did an album. We did an album together a few years ago. I produced an album for his, and we've been friends for 25 years. Jim Caruso, who I have a new CD with, he's probably my oldest friend in New York. We have a new CD called The Sunday Set. He's going to sing with me. On Friday, I have Gabrielle Stravelli, who's a terrific jazz singer. Sally Mays, who's actually, I've known Sally longer than almost anybody, because she was in my first vocal trio 100 years ago. And then on Saturday, I've got Clea Blackhurst, who I do a Christmas show with every year. And then Marilyn May is going to join us for the last show to sing a couple songs. So it's going to be fun. Every show is going to be different and celebratory. And I'm really looking forward to it.
So if Jim heard you describe him as your oldest friend in New York, would he own that, or take umbrage with it?
I think he would have to own that a little bit. I mean, we've known each other 40 years, and we moved up here around the same time, and we've done lots of projects together, and we've been very close for a long time. So I don't think he would balk at that too much. I mean, he's not the oldest in terms of old in years, but I've certainly been friends with him almost longer than anybody.
But you also know how he would play with that. If he were on stage and said that, he would run with that for a minute and a half.
Oh yeah, and I'd run it right back to him. So we would just run it back and forth, and just think we were just hilarious.
Well, what makes that collaboration so fulfilling for you?
With Jim?
Yeah.
It's just funny. We met, like I said, 40 years ago. We both had vocal groups down in Texas. We just got on. We liked the same kind of music and had a lot of the same mutual friends and same humor. Other people that we dislike the same people. Sometimes that's a bond too. And at that point, when I wasn't working with my vocal group, I was spending a lot of time up in Dallas, because I had a really close friend who I would stay with in Dallas, and that's where Jim lived. So we spent a lot of downtime together. And then, like I said, we both had our own groups in the 80s. And then in 1991, we both moved to New York, like within 2 weeks of each other. We didn't talk about, I remember having a conversation on the phone, and I said, well, you know what? My group had broken up. And I said, I'm moving to New York next week. And he said, you're kidding. I'm moving next month. It was weird. So we both decided to move to New York at the same time. I met Liza Minnelli in March of 1991. I introduced her to my close circle of friends, including Jim. We all kind of became inseparable. Um, I collaborated with Liza, as you know, on many, many things. And in 2008, she did a show called Liza's at the Palace. And the second half of the show was a tribute to Kay Thompson, her godmother, and the Williams brothers. And Jim was in that show. He was one of the Williams brothers. So, I mean, we've traveled together, we've toured together, and we've done Cast Party at Birdland for 18 years together, this open mic on Monday nights that he created. So, you know, we're kind of joined at the hip, for better or for worse. But, you know, it's nice to have a friend, you know, a friend like that. It's rare, and it's nice to have a friend, a work friend who's also someone you like to hang out with so much.
Right. Now, since you brought up Liza, I saw an old appearance that you gave on the Charlie Rose show in 1993. And Liza showed up. This is after you had both been part of a fundraiser for Lincoln Center under a tent.
That's cool.
And she said about you, nobody treats a song the way Stritch does. It comes from a musician's point of view. He goes inside the song somewhere to find what it's really about.
Wow.
When you sing or accompany someone on a song that you've done hundreds of times, are there still new discoveries?
Oh yeah, always, absolutely. I mean, if the lyric is good, there's always new things to discover in the lyric. And also the lyric, the meaning of the lyric or how it hits you changes with where you are in your life at any given time. You know, I mean, a very simple example is that, you know, when I was a teenager in my 20s, you know, I loved all the great Gershwin, all the great love songs, you know, Embraceable You and Someone to Watch Over Me and all these songs. But, you know, at that point in your life, they're kind of just songs, you know, but then once you have some life experience and you go through some affairs and breakups and everything, then it's like, it really does mean a lot more. So, you know, you can say, yeah, you can hear a song, sing a song hundreds of times, and it can always feel a little bit different. And also, you know, I'm very, the lyric, even if you don't hear the lyric there, it's like generally if I'm playing a song, an instrumental or accompanying another singer, I'm hearing the lyric in my head. So it's like, even if it's not straight out there, like sometimes I'll do instrumentals, you know, and it's like, but I'm hearing that lyric, you know, one is not independent of the other as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, the older I get, if it's a great song, you know, there's always something new to discover.
Is your first way in through the lyric?
Well, it is now. I mean, it used to not be. When I was young, it used to be the music. But once I started singing, especially once I started singing on my own, then it became about, you know, you'd have to find lyrics that feel right to you, that feel like you have some sort of frame of reference to sing it. Like you have to know something about what the lyric is talking about. Otherwise, it's just words. So yeah, when I hit my 30s, it all changed, and it really became about the lyric, and that's definitely my way in. If it's not good, if it's shoddy or just not quite on the nose, I'll lose interest in it. I'll just move on to the next thing.
So Gershwin's Vodka is not likely to be a part of your repertoire anytime soon.
Probably not for me. Might be right for someone else. Dorothy Loudon certainly was right for her.
It was absolutely right for her.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I could actually see Christine Ebersol do that song.
I can too. There's a lot of things I can see her do. You know, everybody's different. You know, I mean, she sings To Keep My Love Alive, that great Rodgers and Hart song. Well, that's not a song I would ever sing. I mean, it's a character-driven song. So, you know, Christine is such a fine actor that she can play all sorts of things. She's got such a range, you know, and it's fantastic. That's what I mean, like I love accompanying, because, you know, every singer is different. So it's like I might get to play something for someone else that I would never play for myself. So, you know, it always keeps it fresh and fun.
Right. Now, I turned 60 last year.
All right.
So I'm a little bit ahead of you, but I have to say that this birthday more than others, and I think it was because it was coming amidst the pandemic, sort of had me having different thoughts than I might have had previously about what the priorities are for the rest of my life, particularly when I see people that I admire so much who have passed away, in the last few years, and or even Sondheim's passing in November.
Yep.
And, it just, there's a lot of thought that's gone into what do I want the rest of my life to be, or as the song goes, what are you doing the rest of your life? So I'm just wondering if the pandemic or this substantial birthday, or it has led you to any of these thoughts about what's the next chapter, what's the rest of my story going to be?
Well, now it is. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome. Happy birthday, Billy.
Honestly, I'm not thinking that far ahead at this point. I might find that I will be down the line. Coming out of the pandemic and being a working musician, depending on that as much as I do, I'm really kind of just focused on keeping the calendar full at this point. And that's, that may sound a little short-sighted, but it's just kind of where I am. That's what keeps me engaged, not only my own dates, but filling it up with dates with other people as well. That's what keeps me. I'm much more a person who just kind of goes day to day, week to week. I've never been one to set goals like by this time next year, I want to have done that. I've just never been that guy. So, that's how, nothing wrong with that. And I may find as I get older, that might change. I have other long-term goals, but they're not related to my music at all. They're related to maybe my lifestyle, where I live, that kind of thing. But
the bigger apartment in New York.
The bigger apartment in New York, more travel. I would love to travel more. I would like to have part of me would like to have a little house with a yard. I don't know if that's going to happen. That may actually be a lot, because I know that's a lot of upkeep and maintenance as well. So, something great about living in an apartment building, there's so little that you have to really do in terms of, you don't have to mow the lawn. So, but anyway, those are all just things I think of, but they're not related to my career or to music.
Right, fair enough. I want to end by asking you about something that Julie Stein apparently told you, which is whatever you're doing, don't screw with it. If Julie Stein were able to see you today, what do you think he'd have to say to you now?
Isn't that funny? I mean, that's such an interesting question. I mean, I would hope that he would be right there in the audience, enjoying music and going out. And, I love his material. I hope he would approve of any time that I do his songs. I mean, I really do wish you were around because, he was such a fabulous composer. And, there's so many people that I felt so fortunate. I got to New York early enough to meet, Sammy Kahn and Julie Stein and Betty Comden and Adolph Green and Phyllis Newman and Burton Lane, and Cy Coleman is the biggest one because Cy and I really kind of became nice friends. So I've always been so fortunate and realized I was fortunate enough to kind of get in on the last little bit of it. I mean, I would hope that he would say what he said before, just keep doing what you're doing. Don't screw with it. Keep moving on to the next thing. I think that's probably very much how he was too. So he was a character.
No doubt. And he would probably say, is it true that other Stritch, Elaine, actually did Rose's Turn as the second song in her show?
Yeah, right. He would probably guess that. Yeah. Well, yeah, no telling what she did. I mean, talk about being in a class by yourself, and talk about being able to take songs and really make them her own,
Right. Well, I actually did see Elaine Stritch do Rose's Turn at the Carlisle as her second song.
She did the whole thing?
Did all of Rose's Turn, but Rose's Turn is something you do at the end of a show.
Absolutely. How do you follow that?
I don't even remember what she did because I was so gobsmacked by the fact that she did Rose's Turn. And I thought, God, it would have been great to see her in Gypsy.
Would have been, yes, it would have been. She would have definitely put a stamp on it. That's for sure. Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry I'm not going to be in New York to celebrate your birthday. So happy birthday from Los Angeles.
Well, thank you, my friend.
And hopefully I will be. I think you're supposed to be out here in March with Linda Lavin, if my memory is correct.
I will be there.
So hopefully I will be able to, because I've never seen Linda perform. I would love to hopefully get to that show.
She's delightful, and hopefully I was supposed to be at Catalina on my own a couple of weeks ago, but this Omicron seemed to really put the kibosh on that. I was, asking around, and people were like, well, we're not going out yet. And I thought, I don't want to fly across the country to play for 20 people. So hopefully that's going to be rescheduled as well for sometime in May or June. So I'll keep you posted.
Right. And you also there's a cast party at Vitello's coming up, I guess, late spring.
June. I think it's June or July.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in the summer for sure. And we're also doing it in Palm Springs at the Purple Room end of this month as well. So I'm coming out there at the end of the month to do a show with Linda Eder in Irvine. That's someone else I'm working with, that's a new collaboration. She's great.
Right. Right. Well, you're keeping busy. So, apparently you're not screwing with it. You're doing it right.
I'm trying to.
Great. Well, thank you for your time. Are you all right with my posting this interview on YouTube?
The sooner the better.
You know what? I will do this because the show start Thursday. So this will be up this week.
Please get it out there.
I will, Billy. Thank you so much. It's so good to see you.
Thank you, my friend.
All right, take care. All right. Bye-bye.